button has been pressed. We are now live. Hello,
Sweet,
Patrick
dude.
Kelly.
What's up,
Patrick
Brand
Keller
Boy?
is a
How are you?
BMX rider slash science YouTuber slash ex-teacher slash mental health activist slash writer.
Sort of, kind of, yeah. I want to be super clear from the beginning that, like, I am not a mental health expert. I just, like, talk about it on the internet a bunch, and we have some cool things going on within, like, the mental health space. And because today is World Mental Health Day, it seems appropriate to talk about it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not a professional. Like, none of this is medical
Absolutely.
advice, professional advice, anything.
Right. So I wanted to do a stream about BMX and mental health. They go hand in hand.
Yep.
You're a perfect person to talk to for that. We've been talking about streaming, so we're here. We're doing it. And I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't think about this until I was in the shower, like right before I texted you. So I have.
Is that when you think about me, Brant? Is that how these work?
Yes, it's exactly it. So I have zero plans, zero questions, zero anything. I don't know anything about mental health. You're wearing a brain shirt, which is perfect.
Dude, brain hat. I feel like it's appropriate.
It's all appropriate. So
Yeah, man.
you're
All right.
you're a lot better. You're a lot more knowledgeable on this stuff than I am. So I'm not gonna like make you be in charge of it all, but I think that you have a better idea of what's important to talk about.
Sure. Okay. So I'll start with mind tricks just because it seems like that there's a story there that seems like it's worth telling that can be a catalyst for other stories. So I'll start with that.
Right.
All right. So a few months ago, myself and my friend Nikita Dukaros, who's like this, you all know who she is. Like she knows, like needs no introduction. She's one of the baddest like women's BMXers in the world right now. I've known her since she was a little kid. Like literally, she grew up in NorCal, like an hour and a half away from me. I've known her since she was 15, and I've known her to struggle with some mental health issues growing up. In particular, like she was always afraid of flying on airplanes, and so as she got bigger into the contest scene, she obviously had to go fly to all these different places to go compete. And I got to see her go from a teenager with severe anxiety about flying to now flying internationally more than anybody else I knew because of competitions. And so she's had this awesome story of like overcoming anxiety, still present for sure, but of dealing with mental health. And so she's made that a really big part of her identity, which is super badass. And she's also talked about it on the internet a bunch. A few months ago, she put up a big post about how she's dealt with anxiety and how this whole story has played out throughout her life. And so I messaged her afterwards, like, how cool would it be if we saw more of your story from other people within action sports? Like, the fact that you're vulnerable enough to talk about this on the internet is super cool. Let's get other people within BMX and action sports in general talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
This was also stemmed from, like, I mentioned earlier, but like I do a lot of science communication. And so there's this resource that my friends in academia started called PhD depression. Like obviously depression, PhD.
Mm-hmm.
It is eventually rebranded to be PhD balance, which is just helping people with all kinds of mental health issues through community. So using their model as like it is really cool to find other like-minded people who are like dealing with the same struggles you are. Let's do that, but for action sports. There's clearly a need. There's clearly like a good reception when you're talking about it and being vulnerable on your page, like from Nikita's perspective.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this whole thing was like copying what PhD Balance was doing, but co-opting it for action sports. So, perfect. I mean, what's wild is like we started it like a week after that post.
Yeah.
Like it was, I mean, it's so like coming from YouTube, it's hard to launch a YouTube channel.
Right.
It is so much easier to launch an Instagram page.
It's so much easier to do, yeah.
Right. And like obviously Nikita's got a bigger following, and because she already kind of built that as like hey, I'm gonna talk about this stuff on the internet. I hope y'all are down with it too.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to get like a couple people following immediately, and more importantly, people contributing their stories. So the idea with mind tricks, which is what we called it, it's so hard to brand these things too. There was no good name to come up with. Like that was the best we could do with mind tricks.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's still happy. We're happy enough with it that like we rolled with it, right?
Yeah.
So we got that started. Nikita shared her story as like the first one. I shared my story with like dealing with eating disorders growing up, and how that stemmed from BMX actually. And we could talk about like personal stuff if you want to. And that was well received. But of course, like we're only two people. We want to build a community, so we started getting other people's stories. I think the first one we had after mine, I think
I
was
have it
Simon
up right
Tabaron.
now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Simon Tabron.
Yep.
Then you've got some huge names after that.
Right.
Bryce Tryon, Dennis Anderson's in here, Matt Ray's in there, Connor Loads.
Yeah,
There's
dude.
a lot of Nyquist is on here, like lots of Michael Laren, so many huge names, and
Yeah.
there's 21 posts, and I've listed some of the biggest names in BMX who are in those 21 posts.
Right. And that's goes to show like two things in particular. One, it doesn't matter what level you're at competitively, if you're a local rider, if you are like literally the top dudes in the world, you deal with mental health issues that are invisible. And so having this as like a common ground for people to talk has been a really useful thing. We've gotten
Yeah.
a lot of good messages so far. Like, again, it's not a huge following, but it serves an enormous purpose. Get people talking about mental health, show people that they're not alone, and build some kind of sense of community around it. We're
Yeah.
hoping that this is going to have a larger impact than like what follower count show or whatever. That's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
We
none of
want
that
people to
matters.
start talking about this stuff. Um, that being said, like, people, please send us your stories. We want to show as many varieties of people as we can.
And I
There's a
have it
submission
on the
form.
screen
What's
as
up?
well. I've got it showing in the
Oh,
camera too,
awesome.
so
Thank
people
you.
can see it.
Maybe I don't know if this is gonna go up. This is gonna go. This is gonna stay posted tonight, right?
Oh yeah, it'll be live.
Awesome. Maybe in the description we could put a link to that,
Oh, I
to
can
the
put
Mind
it in
Correct
there
Instagram
right
too.
now.
Rad. Thank you. But yeah, there's a link to a Google form on there that you can just submit your story. We are taking submissions. You just need to put. We'll ask you for like a portrait to show your face because again, human connection is important. We don't just want like you with a bike trick, and then something you riding. Um, that's the idea. Like that's the submission process with this. And again, like we found with, or like I saw with PhD Balance, the biggest benefit came from just sharing stories and normalizing a talk about mental health. And so that has been good. Like that has been achieved, and we're trying to push forward more with that with mind tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy with how things are going. I've definitely gotten like just stupid busy in the last month, so we haven't been updating a bunch. Nikita's been competing and traveling and everything, so we haven't been updating it a lot.
Well,
Um, but it,
another
but yeah, I
part of
mean,
it too is like the fact that it exists and people can look back on it. I mean, Instagram isn't really a great search engine,
right.
but it's still there. It still exists. So even if you're not posting a ton, at least it's got a backlog and it's there.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I hope that this is also translating to like in real life conversations.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's kind of the next thing I want to talk about too is like how do we like as people within action sports talk about mental health or talk about like this is gonna sound super hippie, but like how do we talk about our feelings to our friends, like to people who have a very similar lived experience that we spend a lot of time around that can probably relate to a lot of the anxieties or whatever feelings that we're feeling. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, Brant, has BMX ever stressed you out?
Oh yeah.
Of course, right? It's
Ma-
a thing that you care about immensely. It's going to bring about some kind of anxiety at some
yeah.
point in your life. Um, and like, it just because you care, like, because we are passionate about a thing, it's going to elicit a bunch of emotions. I can say that, like, dude, I've had terrible days mentally, and then I go ride, and like everything goes away. And I'm sure that is a feeling that so many people watching can relate to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
I'm curious on your end of things, and this might be a difference between like California and Midwest, but how often do you talk with like your crew about emotions or about just like stuff going on in their head? Like stuff that isn't BMX, but like, real life stuff.
I mean, other people don't really talk about it. I know I sometimes bring up stuff just because of certain things that go on, like being a person who puts himself out there. You
Right.
you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to talk about it specifically, but just because of that stuff, naturally, like talking about those things with your friends, but the other side of it coming back doesn't really happen.
So like you find that people aren't necessarily comfortable talking to you about their
Well,
feelings?
and I haven't asked either, so I would say it might not be that they're not comfortable. It's just that they haven't thought to, or just
For sure.
you know what I mean. Or like, here's one huge thing about me when it comes to BMX and things like that. Like my BMX friends are my only friends, and I
Yeah.
really only see them when I'm riding. So like we're friends on a BMX level, and yeah, it's closer than that too, but it's not like we're best friends hanging out every single day, like even when we're not riding.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, 100%.
We
Like
are best
I
friends. I don't want anyone to get upset. We are
yeah.
best friends, just not like conventional people who hang out every day all day.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We have such a love for BMX that it's weird to separate that love from also like these deep friendships that we built because we've all like been through a bunch of terrible times with each other or like really cool times. Like I
Yeah.
can tell you the last big road trip I went on was with oh man, it's depressing. I haven't been on a good road trip in a long time. But was with the tree team when we went out to Woodward East back in like 2016,
Dude, I remember that.
and that was super fun.
Yeah.
And it was only a week, and for a lot of those dudes, it was my first time meeting them. Like Alex LeBrock, first time meeting him. A couple, who else? First time like really spending a lot of time with Habo.
Yeah.
And just afterwards, just like click immediately. And when I went to the Corn Hucket Jam this summer, saw Habo, and it was just like hugs and everything was good after that. But it's because we spent a lot of time doing the thing that we love and like grinding really hard for a clip or whatever the case was. We built like a deeper friendship through that.
Yeah.
But that was exclusively BMX, right? We didn't get to talk about like stuff that the man, how am I going to go and describe this stuff that really mattered. I think that like you lend a sense of vulnerability to the people that you trust at different levels. So like
Yeah,
BMX could
definitely.
at one end be very superficial and you just ride with that person and that's totally fine. On the other hand, like BMX could be the gateway to like getting closer to that one dude.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, sorry, I'm gonna open my door. Okay, I think a roommate wants to come in.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry.
And a lot of what he's saying right now makes a lot
Sorry.
of sense.
I am going to volleyball and I have to pay $3 in parking. Do you
Oh,
maybe have one more quarter?
I do. Yes.
I'm going to mute his audio so that
Sorry.
you're okay. I could hear her perfectly. Oh,
Oh
because your
man.
headphones are the speaker.
Exactly.
Oh, I see now.
Thanks, Abby.
That's funny.
It's real life stuff.
Okay, so
All right.
anyways,
That's funny. All right.
you're
Male friendships are a thing.
yeah.
My roommate needed a quarter.
Well, there you go.
Go figure.
Anyways,
All right. Anyway, so like we're talking about like creating spaces to talk about our feelings and to talk about mental health.
yeah,
So you were saying that like basically like, well, this has never come up. And so I think that like you sometimes have to be the first one to initiate it. Like
yeah,
once your homies realize like, hey, this is a space where we can talk about what's really bothering us, that is the first step to like creating healthier friendships with
yeah, and
your dudes.
well, and I think like part of it too is that pretty much everyone I ride with locally has other people who are friends outside of BMX who are
Yeah.
probably closer than I would say I am with them. So like they might be my place to go to talk about certain things like I said, but I'm not their place to go to talk about certain things. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Like kind of different friends serve different purposes in your life. Like some are
Yeah.
going to be just BMX friends. Some are going to be like ones that you really want to develop a relationship with.
Yeah, and I'm like, I mean, it is what it is. Everything's freestyle with me, so it's like I'm not mad about it or anything like that.
Yeah. And yeah, like some dudes aren't ready to like go that deep or don't like they don't want to, and that's totally
Hmm.
fine.
Yeah,
That's totally fine.
absolutely. And so to talk more about BMX and mental health and things, I feel like there's definitely like you post a lot of stuff talking about like when was the last time you talked to your friends about your feelings? Like
Yep.
you ask that question, things like that. I feel like there's a lot of like a how do you say it? I know that you know what I'm talking about, but I gotta make you know what I'm saying right now. Like taboo. That's
Yeah.
the word. Taboo
Oh yeah.
for
Stigma,
just
taboo.
talking about those things. Like oh, what are you talking about that for? Like you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
feel like that's
Um.
part of the whole BMX attitude sometimes to be a
Uh,
tough guy because
yeah.
like we're BMX is supposed to be that um I'm really bad at coming up with the words, that rebelling thing where you're like we're not going here to talk about our feelings, we're going here to ride and do cool stuff and get away from our
Sure.
feelings.
Yeah. I think part of that is BMX, and part of that is like kind of the hyper masculine attitude that BMX attracts.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, BMX was punk. It was rebelling against what you were supposed to do. In my class, you were supposed to play football and basketball, and like that was your sport. I didn't like that stuff, and so I was attracted to like skating and biking.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, BMX is very. It is sometimes very tough guy, but it's also very like I don't know. I'm pretty disconnected from like what is cool in BMX these days, but I think it is leaning more tough guy than like emotionally sensitive guy. I
Yeah.
think that's a fair thing to say still.
Yeah.
Um,
And a lot of it's
and
like uh, someone just said BMX is filled with ego. A lot of it is ego driven, and putting your feelings out there isn't necessarily something that shows like to people like they aren't like, oh, he put his feelings out there. I think he's so cool now.
oh yeah, so coming back to what you were saying originally, yes, I have been posting a lot more about that stuff. One, because like that is front and center in my life right now. Like that's what's actually on my mind, and I want to
Yeah.
tell people that because I know when I were younger, like when I was 14 through 16, I wish I had that kind of person to look up to.
Yeah.
I wish that I had somebody, especially like a male role model in my life that was like being super real.
Yeah.
And I, man, like I feel like that isn't very prevalent within BMX right now. There are people who talk about like their struggles, and that's super rad. And the ones that talk about it on Mind Tricks are like celebrated for their honesty and vulnerability. And
Yeah.
again, these are some of the toughest dudes, most winning dudes like in the
This
sport. Um, so there is a demand for it. There are people who want to hear
and
like real stuff.
you just made me remember something.
What's up?
Well, the whole like being the person that you needed when you were younger thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for anyone who's watching this right now, you might be a young kid, you might be an adult, whatever. If and you're dealing with like other people and like bullying, anything like that, especially if you're in high school right now. One thing you got to realize is that all the people who are talking to you badly or negatively or making you feel a certain way are going to get out of high school and they're probably going to get fat.
Not that that's a bad thing. We
No,
celebrate
okay.
body
I
positivity
know,
around these
okay. I'm
parts.
not going to go there. But what I'm going to say is that none of them matter after high school. Literally, you're all going to go your separate ways, and everything that feels like a big deal right now will not be a big deal in 5 years.
Yeah, for
Period.
sure. Um, I do want to say though, like for if you are dealing with bullying, if you're dealing with like haters, whatever, that can feel super real, and that can feel like an urgent thing that you need to take care of. And like, yep, eventually, I like your forward thinking, Brant. Yes, eventually it won't matter, but for the moment, it feels like very hurtful, and it seems like it's the worst thing in the world. Find somebody that you can talk to, that you can connect with, and just let it out. And sometimes, like you don't have that person in your life, like we are talking about earlier, if that isn't an option, journal. If that isn't an option, like, I mean, there are professionals that are willing to talk to you for super cheap.
Yes.
That might not, you know, it might not be a long-standing like therapy relationship, although we do need to get more dudes into therapy.
There's
but, like,
websites too that are specifically designed for people to go on who don't want to go in somewhere and talk to someone or call and talk to someone.
correct.
You can go online and do this. And you just brought up another thing that I really wanted to talk about that I already forgot.
It's okay. It's okay. The yeah, I mean, the takeaway there is like, yep, everyone is going to deal with stuff.
I remember it.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't want to, but here's the, you can finish your thought. I just want to say this so we can move on to it afterwards. But when it comes to BMX and mental health and hating and all of these things, and you're dealing with the bullying right now and stuff, BMX is kind of supposed to be the way that people like take out, you know, and feel better about those things for a lot of people. And what I wanted to talk about in regards to BMX specifically and mental health is that we need to have the conversation about the fact that there are people who are making it so that the people who need BMX to take out their daily life struggles on are making it so you can't do that.
How's that?
Just the people who, not for everyone, but for certain people, like you got kids on the internet talking crap anytime somebody posts something, or just a general negative attitude where you feel like maybe you can't go ride somewhere because certain people act a certain way towards you whenever you go there. Or just any factor that might make someone feel like they can't go and do that one thing that helps them feel better about life.
Yeah, and that's probably coming from like all kinds of different places. From, if we're going to lump everybody into this bubble of like the haters' perspective or the government's perspective or whatever, whoever isn't letting you ride. But it has that effect on that person that needs BMX for coping, for sure.
Yeah, and so that all goes to the thing of if you can't do that one thing, talking about it with someone is the biggest thing you can do, really.
Yeah.
Talking with people about things has been more of a help than riding has been for me any time I've ever done it.
Yeah, 100%, dude. It's yeah. Dude, I also know that like when I don't ride for like weeks at a time, or like if I ever have a stretch where I just don't ride, even though I'm not doing it like I used to, I turn into a raging asshole.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It has such an effect on like how happy I am. And like my brother is dealing with something like this too. He's a musician. He loves playing piano, guitar, or whatever. And he recently was in a car accident where he had to be in like a cast for his thumb, so he couldn't play piano, he couldn't play guitar, and it was having like such an effect on his mental health. And just recently, like he went from a cast to like a softer splint, and like seeing him like hold a guitar pick again or like start to like mess around on the piano a little bit, putting a huge smile on his face, and just like I saw him get so much happier like after he had his thing back. And like to me, like that's my BMX, that's his guitar. Like for anybody else watching who's stumbled upon Brant's stream who has a different thing, then like that, I mean, hold on to that and make sure that you can do it as long as you can, man. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. And it makes watching people like Scotty Kramer mean that much more whenever you see him get it completely taken away, and then you see that exact reaction you were talking about whenever he pedals the bike for the first time, whenever he, let's go even further back, when he walked. Like,
yeah, dude.
Then rides the bike. Now he's doing obstacle courses. Like, it's kind of what you're saying, and I feel like just watching that can help you feel it too.
Oh, dude, that was an inspiration. Like Scotty is just so on. Yeah, dude. He's one of my role models. He's only like 2 years older than me, I think, and he's the man.
Right. So
good.
So maybe we can give some resources for people who might need them.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess if you're coming into this and you're starting to think like, all right, maybe I do want to start taking a little bit of prioritization of my mental health. A few things that you can start doing. We mentioned journaling. We mentioned just like talking to friends about your feelings. And it doesn't have to be like super cheesy or anything. You can literally just be like, hey, dude, how are you today?
Yeah.
And it can, if you're the first one that says, like, I'm actually like not doing too great today, or like shit, stuff's been crappy, whatever, and kind of open up the dialogue to more than just like, I'm good, let's shred, then that is a huge step. It's an important step. It's going to be like a little squishier and more intimate, like at first, but eventually it'll become a really good resource and like a really good way to maintain your mental health. Other resources, I mean, Mind Tricks itself isn't a resource, it is a community.
Yeah.
You can find other people to talk about this stuff with if you're just like, I don't trust like my local crew, or if you don't, you can find people to talk to. But it's, again, we're not healthcare professionals. We are not like trained to do this stuff. It's literally just friends on the internet that you can talk to.
Yeah.
And I've been getting a couple notifications of like people checking in on the Instagram, which is badass. Like, thank you, everybody. That is validating the work that we're doing on this thing. So thank you very much. Like, everybody coming over. I appreciate that. Other resources, like if you're in school, hopefully you have some kind of counseling department, high school. Hopefully you have some kind of counseling department. Hopefully like your school prioritizes mental health. Universities will usually have some kind of mental health component to their healthcare services. It's going to depend on the university. I'm not sure if community colleges do the same thing. If you're an adult watching this, one of the best things that you can do is at least look into therapy. And again, like, men severely undervalue therapy, and like, specifically like talking to a mental health therapist. Check in with it, see how expensive it's going to be. It's going to be cheaper than you think, even, especially if you have insurance. A lot of insurance programs will include it within their package with like pretty cheap copays. Look into it. It's cheaper than you think for a lot of the cases. Don't think it's like a, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to just go to one appointment. And really, like, the payoff it has can be enormous.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking. That's a beginner's crash course to
right.
mental health resources, but I think that's where a lot of your audience is starting from.
Yeah. So how much time do you have left?
You
have a few minutes?
I can do a little more, yeah.
Okay. So my next question is, how do we begin to change the taboo and stigma and just mentality in BMX that we just kind of don't talk about these things?
Be the one to start the conversation. I mean, it's picking up a little bit of steam right now, but like, look at how physical training was even 10 years ago in BMX, right? Like, I'm thinking back to when Mira was the only one doing cross training, or when Kevin Robinson was like, I mean, rest in peace to both of those dudes, but like, they were the only ones taking physical training seriously. And then all of a sudden, everyone in the park scene is doing it. It seems like they need to be competitive. And that was like, again, that was stigmatized at first. Like, you're like, oh, what a meathead, like, training. Like, why would anybody do that? I just want to ride for 9 hours a day. And now it's like, you can't imagine not seeing like the top competitors train. Even like the street dudes. Like, it's cool seeing like, oh gosh, who do I even follow these days? I think Brock does cross training. Yeah. I don't know. He's one of the only dudes I really
I know he did
follow.
whenever he was doing his physical therapy and stuff for his knee. Another thing that's along the exact same lines is eating and diet.
Prioritizing nutrition.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my friends who's doing her PhD in public health right now. She's studying like eating disorders within track runners, like female track runners specifically. And I'm saying, like, I was talking to her like, this is so the opposite of what I saw with BMX growing up.
Yeah.
Where like her population is starving themselves and eating like very low calorie diets, where our sports are like excessive alcohol. I mean, like, I know whenever I go out to ride, like, it's burrito time afterwards, which I'm not shaming. I love burritos still. But we have like a very excessive attitude on our side, or like, we don't really care what we put in our body. But yeah, absolutely. Like, then all of a sudden, dudes like, was it Alex Kennedy that started eating? JJ Palmier
has a company called Plants Basically, where he
Oh,
does
cool.
superfood stuff, I think.
Okay. Oh, and then RAR, like RAR Superfoods is
Yeah,
a
that's
thing.
started by skateboarder BMX people. Um, and another thing I wanted to bring up for the people in the chat, if you guys have questions about mental health or anything you guys want us to talk about specifically, leave it in the chat. I'm not like bringing up a lot of stuff that people are saying, but if there's questions, I will chime in here.
Yeah.
Patrick, you are like a train. Once I put some coal in you, you just go and it's perfect. You're so
Sweet.
good.
I've gotten pretty good at talking like on
Yeah,
the internet.
yeah, it's awesome.
Um,
It's very
all right, I
awesome.
will. Okay, how about this then? Like more stuff that is specific to BMX. Um, Mental health within BMX and action sports takes many different forms. So like I'm definitely pretty far removed from like what people are actually feeling within BMX these days.
Mm,
But I have a pretty good grasp on like what people within science and school are thinking. Um, Mental health within action sports takes so many different forms. Like we had Mikkel do an IGTV with us, and he spent like 10 minutes talking about fear and like what it's like to look at the top of a mega ramp and be about to drop in.
yeah.
Where for some people it might be like I don't know, dealing with like Nikita's thing, anxiety about airplanes. For mine, it was like my body image shaped off of like I lost a bunch of weight after starting to ride BMX, and like that triggered a bunch of stuff within me. I know that like we've had people on mind tricks that deal with like suicidal thoughts, and like BMX is their coping mechanism. So there is no like, oh man, BMX mental health is just concussions leads to CTE leads to premature death, right? There are so many ways that we could go with this that like you viewer, your mental health struggle will be different than this other person, and that's something to recognize too.
And okay, I want to bookend that statement with the fact that no matter who you are, where you are, or who you're riding with, there's someone on the internet, in your community, at your local bike shop that is probably willing to talk to about any of these
For sure.
things. Doesn't matter who you
Yeah.
are. It. You make a post about this on the internet, there are 100 people saying, "Yes, I'm here."
Yeah, dude. Yeah, confirmed. Like I don't have a huge audience, but like whenever I put one of those posts up, like I get people that want to talk about it in the DMs, and that's the most encouraging thing. And like getting to be an older person listening to younger people, that's also great because like one, there's a trust that's building up there, but also like that young person now has like somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be that for some people.
Oh, absolutely.
Not everybody. I can't deal with like a lot
Right.
of strangers, but
Yeah. And then the other thing too is that even though there might be stigma and taboo towards promoting these things, like self-promoting these ideas within yourself on the internet, that doesn't mean that people aren't willing to talk about it either. So trying to put yourself out there or trying to talk to someone will more than likely be successful, even if it doesn't seem like it.
by that are you saying like it might feel kind of self-promoty to talk about
No, no,
yourself
I'm
on the
saying
internet?
like if someone feels like they can't talk to someone because like they appear like this person who wouldn't want to talk about it on the internet or even when in person riding, chances are if you do approach that person or someone, you're going to be able, like they're going to talk to you. Like they're not just going to blow you off and say deal with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. You know what I really liked? You made a video about it, but Zach Gerber, he is one of the toughest dudes in BMX, right? Like he
Yeah.
literally is one of the only riders that I can think about that is limited by how strong bikes can be, and he rides some of the strongest bikes like in
Right.
the industry. Um, and I love reading interviews with him because he is super real, and he's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily talking about mental health stuff, but he is talking from like a very honest place, it seems.
Yeah.
And that's also really encouraging to talk about or to hear that like just people are being honest on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
That does, that's still with his image or whatever. I don't know. I don't know him, so it feels weird to say like that's his
Image
image or
aside, he is without a doubt one of the most mentally strong people that have ever touched a bike.
mm-hmm.
Because that's the only possible way you get yourself to pedal at a gigantic 15-foot gap to flat and jump off of it after you just got done completely wrecking your bike
Right.
doing exactly that.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, it's again, mental health like comes in all shapes and sizes, and that's a cool thing to see. All right.
One person brought up a question about how to deal with getting over being judged when there are a lot of people around. I have an anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
My way of doing that when I was younger was to just not even care that they were there.
That's I 100% am with you there as a 30-year-old who is out of BMX.
Yeah.
But as relating to like what the viewer was saying, 100% I have felt the like all
Yeah.
eyes on me attitude, and yeah, it sucks to be in. The thing that helped me kind of not get over it because it never really goes away, but the thing that helped me cope with that was humanizing the other people.
Yeah.
So like within BMX, it's really tempting to think like there's that pro, there's that like local that I super look up to, and they are a BMX rider, and that's like how I look up to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Totally relate. But they're also the same person that like, you know, probably watches Stranger Things on Netflix or has like spends too much time on Instagram or whatever. That person is still a human. And so that person remembers what it was like to feel the same thing that you're feeling.
Yep.
They probably did. Even, no matter how good they were, they have related at some point to feeling embarrassed, right?
Yes.
Everyone has been 13. Everyone knows like what that feeling is like. So you are very rarely their number one complaint.
Yeah.
Right. If you're, I mean, for me, it was, that's actually why I became a vert rider at first. I don't know if you remember like those days.
No.
I used to ride vert because I was afraid of all the dudes at our local skate park who were riding the box jump and mini ramp. And I'm like, well, I don't want to ride around them. I would rather ride by myself. The vert ramp is totally empty. I'm going to go ride that. So like what that viewer is saying, I relate to 100%.
And another big thing for me is just like once you realize that they aren't judging you and that they're just there to do the exact same thing you are, and that more than likely when you succeed at whatever you're trying to do in the same place that they're trying to do something, they're going to be just as excited as you are. Or even if they're not, they probably won't care. If they're not excited, that means they don't care, which also lends to the fact that they're not judging you at all. So once you get to the point that you realize that, it makes it that much easier to just go and not necessarily worry as much.
Yeah, dude. So to summarize the answer, like you don't matter as much as you think you do, and that person is still human. All those people on the deck are still human.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Any other good ones in the chat?
Well, someone said, I found hard to deal with the constant pressure of always learning new tricks and don't want to risk new ones because I need to work and study, and it gives a huge feeling of failure.
Yeah, dude. I'll let you start because I have the coal-powered train thing is like resounding. Like I gotta stop talking sometimes.
No, you're good. You're doing everything you say is great.
Oh, thanks, bud.
So I deal with this. I mean, I don't feel pressure to learn new things, but every single time I'm at the skate park, I'm trying something different. Like I'm pressuring myself to like do something different just because I don't like doing the same thing. So I kind of get it, but the main thing about it I would try to think about is that when you're trying something new, you're not failing. If you're not trying something new, you're not failing. As long as you're riding your bike, you're not failing. It's when you stay at home because of the fact that you're scared to fail that you fail. Just getting out there is enough. Like there's a lot of people like Garrett Burns in his BMX in Our Blood podcast. They talk about how like he's not riding at the same level that he used to. And when you transition from that being a pro to being a normal guy who's just flowing around, it can feel like that. I think that's when you somewhat just connect with why you're doing it in the first place.
Yep,
It's all for
for sure.
fun, regardless of new tricks, old tricks, or tricks at all. It's all just
Yeah,
for
dude,
the fun of it.
for sure. Yeah, dude, the Garrett Burns thing, like, I relate to a lot. Back in like 2014, 2015, when like I was at my hungriest within BMX, like
Mm-hmm.
that's when we did like the Front Break Brethren Instagram Slam, which is
Yeah,
old now. It's like 5 years old.
it's a good
I'm
one though.
It's a good one. Yeah. It was really fun to make. But like that's when I was at my hungriest, right? But it's also when I like had such a poor relationship with BMX because I pressure myself every day to go film a clip because like the weight of the world was on my shoulders to like try to promote front brake riding and try I don't know. I was like living for Instagram, like living to put like front brake stuff on the internet. And now that I don't care as much, now I can focus on BMX being a just fun thing.
Yeah,
So I mean, that's the whole that's gonna be a deeper thing for like that person who asked the question though. It's like, well, I still want to feel like I'm progressing. I still want to feel like doing something. Like, and my solution was like, well, just don't care as much.
yeah.
So sorry, dude. Yeah,
I have
that's
another
tricky.
proposed solution for that too, and that's something that a lot of people have done. And it's just if you're scared to try new tricks, find tricks that aren't as risky to learn. Learn lip tricks because they're
Yeah,
not as risky, and there's a completely endless amount of them that you can learn without having to risk your body as much as if you're trying to do like pushing jumping tricks. Pushing lip tricks to their limits is not quite as dangerous as pushing jumping tricks to their limits.
for sure. For sure. Yeah, try stuff opposite. Like that's a fun way to like keep things fun but also like less risky.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you brought up something that could be a whole nother conversation another time with like we could probably get Nikita in on it. Just the whole pressure of riding for Instagram riding, like and doing being a professional BMX rider or someone who is promoting BMX on a daily basis and keeping it fun and the mental like struggle that there has to be and that there can be. Like I feel like I set myself up in a way that I'm not going to have to deal with that because all I put out there is exactly what I want to do. But there's
Mm-hmm.
certain people, namely people who are in contests, who kind of have to ride a certain way to be able to compete, who might not be able to just go and do whatever they want or post whatever they want. That's something that I feel like should be talked about.
Yeah. Plus, once you bring sponsors into it too, then they're getting some real estate on your Instagram and they have a say.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I feel like it's a conversation to have where maybe that conversation could be listened to or watched by other people within the industry and kind of change minds and help people cope that way.
Yeah. I don't know. That's bigger than anything that we can solve in this one. And that
Absolutely.
one, yeah, you talk to an industry folk for that.
Right. Um, there's really not much else here. Someone said something about the topic about getting judged about riding a Walmart bike. If you're relating to my video saying Walmart bikes aren't real BMX bikes, that video is strictly about safety.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. It's not safe to ride a bike from Walmart the way that we try to ride bikes. That's it. Um,
Yeah, dude.
but
But yeah, the difference between like a $300 Sunday bike and a top of the line Sunday bike, nobody cares.
nope. As long as you're having fun on your bike, that is literally all that matters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
we have both seen the guy who's riding the crappiest bike at the skate park doing the craziest tricks ever.
Yep. 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 Yep.
That exists everywhere. So Patrick, give me some final thoughts here. Mental health, BMX, and mental health day in general for anyone who
Yeah.
might be watching this in the future.
Yeah. I don't know the end message and the thing that I try to talk to like younger dudes about outside of BMX, but it obviously relates to what we're talking about. Put your ego beside yourself. talk to people, be vulnerable, and that's going to be the thing that makes you healthier in the end.
Absolutely.
Therapy isn't a big deal. It's going to be one of the best decisions that you decide to do. If you're not ready for that, start talking with friends, start a journal. That's all.
Yep. And just realize that what you're putting out there into the world has an effect on people as well. Just the same way everything has an effect on you, what you're doing has an effect on other people. And just think about that. And I think if everyone considered those things, the world would be a better place.
Blah!
Where's
Nice,
the
dude.
explosions?
Yeah, dude. It's a little somber note, but also like good talking to you, dude. That was
Yes.
yeah.
I will end this on the last chat that just got put in here. Be vulnerable and get used to it.
Yeah, dude.
On that note, thank you all for watching. Subscribe to Patrick. His link is in the description. Subscribe here if you're new, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for another video.